Hello, everyone, and welcome to Center for Spiritual Living, Rogue Valley in Medford, Oregon. I'm Kimberly Hawkins, spiritual director here, and on behalf of our small crew, we are so glad you decided to join us for our Sunday celebration. We are an inclusive, progressive spiritual community, teaching spiritual tools to transform personal lives and help make a world that works for everybody. No matter where you happen to be on your own spiritual journey, you're welcome here. With me this morning to do our invocation and reading is Reverend Dr. Linda Rapond. Holding high watch from home is our practitioner, Nancy Clay. And managing the chat on Facebook this morning is Kayla Tice. By the way, we encourage you to type in your name and where you're from in the chat so we can kind of connect virtually. Our musicians this morning are Heather Hutton and Lauren James, and we go to them now for our opening song.
Good morning. So this first song is called Let Us See the Beauty by Lawrence Cole, and it's inspired by the words of Araya Mountain Dreamer, poet and author, and she has a beautiful piece called The Invitation. It's about saying yes, no matter what. I want to know if you can see the beauty even when it's not pretty every day. Great reminder. Let us see the beauty every day and source our lives from its presence. Let us see the beauty every day and source our lives from its presence. I want to know if you can see the beauty even when it's not pretty every day. I want to know if you can see the beauty and source your life from its presence. Let us see the beauty every day and source our lives from its presence. Let us see the beauty every day and source our lives from its presence. I want to know if you can see the beauty even when it's not pretty every day. I want to know if you can see the beauty and source your life from its presence. Let us see the beauty every day. Let us see the beauty every day. Let us see the beauty every day.
Thank you so much. That was beautiful. Let's begin this service with prayer. So just turning within, we open to the awareness of the infinite presence of God that has been here all along, in, around, through, and as each of us. Only God, only life itself, love itself, wholeness, peace. And so as we awaken ourselves to be aware of that presence, we allow it to inform our thinking, our feeling, our very being, with its aliveness, with its wholeness. Oh, and it's so good. And so I give thanks for this magnificent day, for this opportunity to come together in worship. I bless each person participating in this service, either in this building or virtually, for we are all connected so deeply at source that we truly are one. Oh, I just give thanks for all of this. And I know that this day unfolds perfectly easily, effortlessly. And it's so good. We're so blessed. Thank you, God. And so it is. I'm going to do a reading for you as well. This week, today, begins what in the Christian world is Holy Week, which is starting with Palm Sunday and just walking through the journey of the last week of Jesus' life before his death, and then ultimately next Sunday, his resurrection. And while we don't follow that in a literal sense, it's always in my awareness when Holy Week arrives. It's like, why couldn't we have every week be Holy Week? We just like okay, today I'm going to declare this is Holy Week. And the next week I'm going to declare it again. We could do that. So from that perspective of everything is holy, I want to read to you from John O'Donohue's book, To Bless the Space Between Us. Before time began, the invisible world rested in the eternal. With the creation of our world, time and space began. Every stone, bush, raindrop, star, mountain, and flower has its origin in the invisible world. That is where the first sighting of each of us occurred. We emerged from the fields of time, each an intense mixture of visible and invisible. Our eyes cannot see this world. Our hearts are usually too encumbered to navigate it, our minds too darkened to decipher it. As the Bible says, now we see through a glass darkly. Yet it is exactly on this threshold between the visible and invisible that our most creative conflicts and challenges come alive. Each new beginning, each new difficulty, always finds us on that frontier. And this is exactly why we reach for blessing. In our confusion, fear, and uncertainty, we call upon the invisible structures of the original kindness to come to our assistance and open pathways of possibility by refreshing and activating in us our invisible potential. When we bless, we work from a place of inner vision, clearer than our hearts, brighter than our minds. Blessing is the art of harvesting the wisdom of the invisible world. From day to day, it offers us new gifts. Thank you.
Well, I wrote this song maybe 12, 13 years ago now it is. It's called What Would Water Do? And it was a day when not everything in my life was going exactly how I wanted it to. Imagine that, right? And I started to think about nature and the lessons of nature and water in particular and how all the states it takes. You know, when there's a rock, it moves around it. If it's too cold, it freezes. If it's too hot, it evaporates. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful way to take our lesson from nature in that way, to go with the flow and be with what is. So this is What Would Water Do? What would water do? Take the path of least resistance to get through. That's what water would do. Maybe I could too. Like the water in my veins doesn't worry about the place it's going to. That's what I could do. What would water do? Freeze and wait till winter turns to something new. That's what water would do. Maybe I should too. Rest and chant, this too shall pass. We all know that nothing lasts, that's nothing new. That's what I could do. Oh. seasons slowly turn. We learn to bend before we burn. And when the storm she comes, we shake like mad. That's when our roots become all that we have. All that we have. What would water do? Rise up high and disappear when it's too hot, till it's safer to drop. Maybe I could too pick myself up off this ground and stop waiting to be found. That's all been done. It's all been done.
What would water do? We are so blessed by our musicians. Thank you so much, Heather Hutton and Lauren James, for that original song by Heather. In addition to recognizing today as Palm Sunday, I also want to wish any of you who celebrate Jewish traditions a happy Pesach, happy Passover. We are wrapping up our month-long theme today, which was open to possibilities. I have loved this topic. I feel like it's beginning to open me, and I hope that the same is true for some of you. We've talked quite a bit about a spiritual practice in our tradition that we call visioning. Unlike visualization, where we picture something we want as if it's happened, visioning is an opening process. It's a process where we get very still in deep meditation and ask questions to catch, if you will, to hear Spirit's highest vision, Spirit's highest idea for whatever it is we're focusing upon. Right now, in our CSL Rogue Valley community, we're doing a series of visionings to see and catch Spirit's highest idea for our new church home, our new space, because we're looking forward to the time, hopefully soon, when we can come together again in person. But this process called visioning can be used to catch Spirit's highest idea for your life purpose, your life partner, anything, your health, your finances, and so on. It's a very powerful, powerful practice. And in that practice, we ask 3 questions. So just reviewing a little bit. The first question is just that: what's Spirit's highest idea of? The second question is, what must I embody in order for that vision to come into manifestation? The third question we focused a lot on last week is, what must I release? What must I let go of in order for that vision to manifest? And I talked last week about many authors have said that spiritual growth, spiritual work is really more about letting go than it is. It's more about letting, allowing, than it is about getting. It's a process of subtraction, not addition, which was my topic last week, addition by subtraction. So what are the things we typically need to let go of in order to let Spirit's highest vision emerge? Things like limited beliefs, preconceived notions, being attached to how things should go, much like Heather's told us, if we can be open like water to changing our views and our form. Letting go of lack of faith, letting go of separation are also things that oftentimes we're called to do. I want to read a poem by the ancient Sufi mystic Rumi. He's a 13th century author, and it just proves that new thought, ancient wisdom, spiritual truth does not change. So he speaks to this idea of letting go. It's called Empty It Out in Front of Me. There have been thousands of things for you to pick from, to put in your backpack on this journey. But empty it out in front of me if you cannot look in all directions and nothing bothers you. I say that because if what you are working with, what you are carrying everywhere you go, has not brought you peace, would it not, my dear, then make great sense to try something I might offer? Wow. So it calls us, I think, to think about, what are we carrying around in our backpack? What are the things that we carry with us everywhere we go? What things that we've outgrown, that don't serve us, that limit us, that keep us in a box? And I love what Rumi says, empty it out in front of me. In other words, empty it out in front of God. Let spirit, let divine, infinite love, intelligence guide you, guide me, guide all of us about what we should carry with us. Because if what we're carrying doesn't allow us to look at anything and, as he puts it, not be bothered, not have peace, then we're carrying around something that doesn't serve us. Wow. Love Rumi. So one of the things that we're called to let go of are harmful habits, of course, addictions. And I recognized one of mine recently. I don't know if I shared this last week, but sometime during COVID, and this social isolation, I started a bad habit, a habit that did not serve me, of first thing in the morning turning on my news app on my phone and listening to the news. And I realized just the past couple of weeks that was not serving me. That's not what I want to put in my backpack, in my brain when I first wake up. I would rather be grounded in knowing God is all there is and everything is fine. So I experimented. With taking that out of my backpack. I experimented with tuning into spiritual services from other CSLs and other churches, and that was a great way to start my day. Then more recently, I turned on Spotify, which happens to have music from a lot of our New Thought artists, and it was a great way to start my day. It was like prayer. It was so, so sweet. So just one example of how we might, empty that backpack out and try something new. Earlier this month, I gave a message called Outside the Box. And today what I want to talk about is how do we stay outside the box. So going back just a little bit to that idea, I remember showing a little cartoon video in Foundations where Joshua, this blobby figure, was stuck in a box and fought like heck to get out. And once he got out and he was free, he was at first like, wow, and then he got scared. He started to cry, crawled back into the box. And I think oftentimes when we catch God's Spirit's highest vision for something in our lives, it's exciting, but then it gets scary, and there's this tendency to want to crawl back into what we're used to, what we're comfortable with. Another example of this is the story in the Bible in Exodus. When the Israelites were captives in Egypt, they were slaves, and the conditions were horrible. They had horrible taskmasters. They were not free to practice the way they wanted to. It was really a harsh, harsh life. And catching Spirit's highest vision, they wanted to escape and flee to Canaan, the promised land. And typically, I love the metaphor in this story, because when we set an intention, God supports that intention. So in this case, God sent 10 plagues upon the Egyptians. I mean, there were lice and flies and boils and, all kinds of hail. The firstborn child of the Egyptians were killed. It was awful. And finally, Pharaoh kept saying, no, I won't let you go. Finally, they were allowed to leave, but the army chased them. And what did God do? You know the story. He parted the Red Sea so that the Israelites could flee, and then allowed the waters to come back in to drown the Egyptian soldiers. So the point of the story was they were supported every step of the way. Then they go into the wilderness for 40 years. And again, they don't have food like they at least did when they were slaves. But what did God do? Sent manna from heaven every night they could harvest, and it was food. And it was only enough for that day. They were instructed not to save it because God would always provide new that day. The day before the Sabbath, 2 days' supply of manna came because they weren't allowed to harvest it. In other words, they were so taken care of, but they started to grumble. And I think this is what we often do. When we have a vision of a promised land, a new, huge idea for our lives in some aspect of our lives, we get impatient, we get disheartened, we lose faith. So what did the Israelites started telling their leaders, Moses and Jacob? We want to go back to Egypt. We were better off in slavery. At least we had enough to eat. And it's just sort of ironic, isn't it? I mean, sometimes we have to endure that in-between time when what we want to see happen, we know it's coming, but not maybe in our time, maybe in God's time. The quote again from Eckhart Tolle, I love, we must become comfortable with uncertainty in order for infinite possibilities to open up in our lives. We must become comfortable with uncertainty. So again, today I want to focus on how do we stay open to possibilities? How do we stay comfortable with uncertainty when things haven't quite worked out yet, haven't quite manifested yet? I entitled my talk this morning, Your Sacred Yes. Your sacred yes. But I want to talk about not only how do we say sacred yes to what may have come in visioning or prayer or guidance, not only how do we say a sacred yes, but how do we stay with that sacred yes in the face of uncertainty, and it takes time. Open to possibilities. Wow. So there are two ways I want to talk about, two metaphors. One is the metaphor of open arms. Open arms. So in two different ways I see this need for us to have open arms. First of all, open arms to the way things are right now. That doesn't mean they can't shift, or it doesn't mean we don't want them to shift, but not to resist what's happening right now in our lives. Many spiritual teachers have talked about this. I love the quote, some of my favorite quotes from The Way of Mastery, which, by the way, is akin to the Course in Miracles. Speak to this. Your ordinary daily life is the most perfect ashram you could ever be within. In other words, our ordinary life, the way it is right now, the way it appears and the way it doesn't appear, is the perfect school for us to learn whatever it is we need to learn. Think about COVID this year. Nobody wanted it. It's really been difficult. But I think and hope and pray that lessons are coming out of this, continuing to come out of this, that will be serving us as we move forward. The other quote from The Way of Mastery, all my experiences are the stepping stones laid before me of God to guide me home. So if we can learn to know that, to trust that, to have open arms to whatever's going on right now, that's a great way to help us stay in that sacred yes. This week in my personal meditation time, I was using a mantra that comes from the mystic, what was her name? Oh no, it's leaving me. It's Julian of Norwich. I think it was 12th or 13th century English mystic. Now it's interesting, Julian was what they called an anchoress, which means that she went into isolation in the church, which was the church of Julian, St. Julian. And she lived in a time of extreme hardship. She was born during the 100 Years' War between England and France. When she died, that war was still going on. And it was also the time of the Black Death, the bubonic plague. There were 3 plagues during her lifetime. She even got ill. And yet, her writings are filled with inspiration and hope and trust and faith. So the mantra I've been using this week from Julian of Norwich is, all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. I think in Science of Mind we might shift that and say, all is well, and all will continue to be well. Now, our founder of Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes, spoke also to this idea of open arms. And in this case, it's open to God and knowing, so there are two ways I'm looking at open arms. We're open to life as it is, and knowing that God is open to us, that spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, always has open, welcoming, supportive arms. I think of the statue that towers over Rio de Janeiro that I love, Christ the Redeemer. He's standing there like this. And what I understand is after World War I, the Catholic diocese in Rio was concerned that people were becoming faithless and godless. And so the statue was built as a reminder to have faith. As I started to say earlier, our founder of Ernest Holmes speaks to this in some of his beautiful meditations in our Science of Mind textbook. One of the meditations is called The Everlasting Arms of God. And I want to read you an excerpt from another one that he called The Mantle of Love. Like a cloak, his love is wrapped around me. Like a warm garment, it shelters me from the storms of life. I feel and know that an almighty love envelops me in its close embrace. O love divine, how wonderful thou art. I am open to receive thy great blessing. Love envelops me. Take a deep breath on that one. Yeah. So open arms is one of the practices I'm encouraging for us this week, to stay with the sacred yes. The other practice is looking up. Looking up. As I was thinking about this week, I remembered a passage from the Bible about Jacob's ladder. Some of you who are familiar with the Bible may remember that Jacob was dreaming, and he dreamt that there was a ladder from heaven to earth, and there were angels descending and ascending. And there have been many different interpretations about what that means. First of all, it's a lovely metaphor for the connection, the bridge between heaven and earth, that really it's not separate. But the fact that angels were going down and up, some Jewish scholars said it was because when the Israelites were in the wilderness, there was one set of angels who knew the territory and were helping them out. And then when they entered Canaan and they were in a different territory, there was a different team of angels needed to help them out. And I love that because I think that the same may well be true for all of us, that there's always heavenly support for each of us, and that we're always having angels coming and going back up and coming down to support us, to guide us, to be there around us, surrounding us in love. There are several passages, 3, I believe, in the Christian Bible, both in the Old and the New Testament, where the phrase look up is used. One of them was in Psalms, where the psalmist said, I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord. And Jesus said, lift up your eyes and look at the fields, for they are already white with harvest. He was telling his crowd that don't talk about the harvest is 4 months away and we have to wait. Look to the hills. It's waiting to happen, which again is that belief that even though things aren't happening right now, the promise is there. Let's have faith that it is happening. And the final thing I want to say about looking up was an experience I had several years ago attending the Minister's Ongoing Education Conference, where Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis from CSL Seattle and 3 other experienced, beautiful ministers teach younger, inexperienced ministers what they know. And they do this for free. This conference is held usually at a lovely resort. Luxury is at hand, and yet the people who attend for the first time don't pay anything. It's all supported by gifts. What a lovely, lovely gift it is. So during the conference, Kathy Ann taught a process, and I'm going to offer it to you briefly here and suggest that maybe we use it on our own in more depth later on. It's another tool in our toolbox. So the invitation is to think of something that's challenging in your life, that's difficult, a problem, a challenge. It could be in the area of relationship. It could be in the area of finances, health, whatever. Just think of a challenge that is troubling you right now. And once you have that in mind, the first step is to look down, look at the floor, look at your feet, and just take note of what is in your head. What are the thoughts or feelings about that issue, that challenge in your life as you look down? And again, this is an abbreviated version. Now look straight ahead. Look on the level. And again, take note of how am I feeling? What am I thinking about that challenge now? And the final step is to look up. Raise your eyes. And what are the thoughts? What are the feelings about that problem now as you look up? To a person, when we shared at that conference, there was a huge difference. When we were looking down, it was all of the box, being in the box, the limitations, the worries, the doubts, the fears, the impatience. As we looked straight ahead, it was more neutral and maybe glimmers of possibilities. And as we looked up, faith and hope supplanted those doubts and fears. And sometimes people even got ideas about what might be a solution or something to look to. Now, metaphorically, God is not just up there in the sky, but there's something about looking up in our human psyche we think about. That's where heaven is. That's where divine guidance lives. So I encourage anybody to take that practice if there's something troubling you this week and see what might happen. It's kind of almost an abbreviated form of the visioning process we do. So as we speak about your sacred yes and staying with that sacred yes, what we're really talking about is entering and attempting to live in the third stage of consciousness, which Reverend Michael Beckwith calls channel consciousness, where we allow life to move through us. I love Jesus's phrase when he said, "It is not I, it is the Father within me who doeth the work." We might say it's the Father, Mother, God within me that doeth the work. It's not me and my egoic, small human self. It's the expanded self with a capital S. And so once again, as we study spiritual principles, we are encouraged to move from the stage one of consciousness, which is victim consciousness. Oh gosh, life happens to me and there's nothing I can do about it. To stage two, which is the manifester consciousness. We realize there are tools, there's a power we can use, affirmative prayer and affirmations and visualization, and we can begin to have life go the way we want to, but it's still the way we want to in our limited human view. And stage three, when we say a sacred yes to God's highest vision, we become a channel for possibilities we may never even been able to dream of. Letting, allowing. So this week I'm hoping we can all practice not just saying a sacred yes, but staying with our sacred yes. And by the way, there's also a holy no that comes along with that, because when we say a sacred yes to the highest vision, we're saying a holy no to the old fruit bats, the old limited views, the old feelings that we're not worthy or something is impossible, because nothing is impossible with God, with divine, infinite intelligence. And I invite us to look up to the hills where the harvest is happening. It's already evident. And to remember that there is not only a stairway to heaven, there's not only a connection where help is always coming for us, but I think when we stay with the sacred yes, when we commit to allowing that vision to manifest that's highest and best for our lives in whatever area we're talking about, that we're really taking the up escalator. The up escalator. Why do I say that? Because it's not just the stairway that we have to climb. When we commit to faithfully knowing and allowing that vision to manifest, it's like we step onto the escalator and God lifts us. We are guided, we are lifted. Wow, I love that. Yeah. So let us this week say and stay in that place of your sacred yes. Let's go into prayer. And thank you, Lauren, for accompanying this prayer. There's nothing like music to open our hearts. And as I open mine right now, I know that this presence, this power is not only up there. As Karen Drucker sings, it's in front of me, to the back of me, to the left, to the right, all around me, in me and through me is God, love, spirit, source, infinite good. that always knows, that always cares, that always opens its arms, is waiting to embrace us, to guide us, to supply us. And so I know that that presence is right where I am. It's right within each one listening to this broadcast live or recorded. It's within each one across the planet right now. I say a special word of knowing that it's with all the people who have suffered violence recently, floods and shootings, that God is right there, right where they are, always, always and forever. It's with each of us celebrating this Holy Week, whether it be Passover, Palm Sunday, Easter, whatever the holy ground is that we celebrate and stand on, we are supported. We are each an individual expression of that one life, and as such, we are loved, supported, and guided. And so I know as we each open to the higher vision for our lives, for the world, that we step onto that up escalator, that God supports us, lifts us, guides us all. There is such reason to look to the hills and to know the harvest awaits us, my friends. And so in gratitude to know all this, in gratitude for spiritual communities around the globe, whether people are worshiping in a mosque, an ashram, a temple, on a yoga mat, in nature, we are one. Truth is truth. God is all there is. With such gratitude to know this, to speak this, to share this, I release this word into the law, that fertile yes, knowing it is done, and we say together, and so it is. Amen. We go now once again to our musicians, Heather and Lauren.
So let's continue that prayer into the body movement, the song. And I invite you to just breathe, inhale, and feel the expansion in your heart. Let your hands expand. And exhale, feel the release. Inhale, feel that expansion. Exhale, release. Singing is such a beautiful way to bring the prayer into the body. And this chant is called I Allow, I Surrender by Karen Drucker. And I invite you all, wherever you are, on the other side of that screen, to sing with us, with Lauren and I. I allow, I surrender, I allow, I surrender, I allow, really feel it in your body, I surrender, I allow, surrender, I let go, I allow, I receive, I surrender, I let go, I allow, I receive, I surrender, I expand, inhale, I allow, I receive, I surrender, release on the exhale. A couple more times. Really tune into your sacred yes and your holy no. Your sacred yes, your holy no. Just a few more. I allow, I
Thank you, Heather and Lauren, once again. It's time now when we talk about the spiritual practice of sacred giving. This is the time when we get to be cognizant and grateful for the good we receive and be willing to share it with the places we're spiritually fed. So I'm going to ask you to say with me, if you will, our giving affirmation as it comes up on the screen. From the love of pure spirit within me, I bless this gift. I send it forth to heal and bless and prosper. It is evidence of my faith and my belief. It does great work in the world, and it returns to me multiplied abundantly. There are a couple ways to contribute to Center for Spiritual Living Rogue Valley, so we might continue to offer our ministries. You can go to our website, www.cslroguevalley.org, and hit the donate button, or snail mail us a check to CSLRV at P.O. Box 1458, Medford, Oregon 97501. Just a reminder that we also tithe as a community as part of our spiritual practice. Part of our tithe goes to CSL Home Office, and then part of it to local organizations who support our mission. So this quarter, which is ending now in a couple days, our tithes for January, February, and March have been going to Black, Indigenous, People of Color, in other words, BIPOC Sanctuary in Ashland, Oregon. And last quarter, the end of last year, our tithes went to Unite Oregon, another nonprofit working for social justice. So we are grateful to be able to share in supporting those great causes. A few announcements. We continue our morning spiritual practice calls on Monday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. Feel free to join us on Zoom. The links are in our weekly e-newsletter. We also have a call Thursday evening at 7, led by ministerial student Laura Stewart. If you don't receive our newsletter, you can sign up under email on our Facebook page, or just email us at cslroguevalley@gmail.com. We'd be glad to add you to our newsletter list so you can know everything that's going on. We do have 2 classes coming up, and the early bird special discount is good only through today. So if you're on the fence, time to decide. Sign up for our foundations class taught by Reverend Michelle Ariano, starting Wednesday evenings for 10 weeks, April 7th, 6 to 8:30. Or if you've had foundations, or you're just interested in the roots of science of mind, those people that our founder Ernest Holmes studied as he developed this philosophy, that class is also starting on April 7th, 6 to 8:30 on Zoom. Another important thing that I know a lot of people have asked about is our second visioning session for CSLRV's new space, new church home, is happening this coming Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. on Zoom. A good idea to email me or cslroguevalley@gmail.com, because there are some documents we'll send you to help you record the answers that come when you catch Spirit's highest vision of our new church home. We're also hoping to offer later on this spring, a class where we're going to help people vision for their life purpose, their life mission. So stay tuned for more about that. I think that's it for our announcements. Let's go once again to Lauren and Heather for our closing song.
Well, I feel newly inspired. Thank you, Reverend Kimberly. This was great. This is Use Me by Ricky Byers and Michael Beckwith.
Use me, oh God, I stand for you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth or the stars or all of creation. God is creator, all in all, needing us to shine its light as me, as you you, and here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Command my hands, what must they do? Command my life, it's here for you. God is the love that heals all creation. God is creator, makes all things new. God needs us to shine its light as me, as you. So use me, oh God, I stand for you. Dear, I'll abide as you show me all that I must do. Oh, use me, oh God, I stand for you. And here I'll abide as you show us all that we must do. Show us what we must do.
One of my all-time favorite songs by Ricky Byers. Thank you so much, Heather and Lauren, for that beautiful rendition. I got a little teary, I'll confess. Before we close, I want to acknowledge our team of volunteers, small but mighty, that make these Sunday broadcasts possible. This morning, Jason Rummel was our director. His son, Ben, is here training to join our team. Welcome, Ben. Maggie Covarrubias, Bill and Connie Miner, who have been our staunch team leaders forever. Vivian Lacey, and our sound engineer this morning, as always, has been Tom Frederick. So thank you all. Thank you so much for your help and dedication. As we close, and I remind me and everyone to stay with our sacred yes by looking up and living with open arms, I'd like to read for our benediction a brief excerpt from our founder, Ernest Holmes, from his book, Your Invisible Power. Above the wind and higher than the whirlwind, enshrined in the heart of God, there's a voice within you which says, "Peace, be not afraid, it is I." This I is you. You is God within you. This God within you is peace. Peace be with all of us, my friends. Namaste.